your biggest customer.
Hello there, my friends. Chris Marcus here with you for Arcadia Economics. Welcome back into our 2021 hyperinflation special, covering the action as it unfolds. And let's see if we can get our screen share queued up there. I'm joined by Rob Keynes of Gold Silver Pros and Chris Marchese of SilverSeek and goldseeker.com. Welcome back on in, fellas. How are you doing? Still good?
Always good.
Long time no see, Chris.
Yeah, well, a little SLV talk will do that. We'll gloss over this for the moment. Critics slam the Fed as home prices rise at a historic rate. Sure, there's no connection to the Biden infrastructure plans. So on one hand, to be clear, I don't know. I mean, this is what's happening, I think, is horrible in one sense, to the degree that, I don't know, I left Wall Street, Rob left his auditing firm, Chris left a job on Wall Street, all to share what we've seen, help other people understand what's coming, help them be prepared. And with that said, since it's a show and part of the thing is whether we have $1 million or we're in debt, you know, living life and enjoying things. So we're going to have fun, poking fun at the insanity of this because, disclaimer out of the way, I mean, it's like, I don't know, I could sit here and be angry, or I could be darn grateful that I learned about silver, that I know people who know about silver, and that despite what's happening in the price, and we can get into that as well a little bit, but I mean, when you look through these things, I mean, this is just beyond wild.
Wait, Chris and Rob, you guys have got to be understanding after this this ridiculous proposal, because food prices are going down, right?
Definitely. It's like,
sorry, I think that was a little too sarcastic even for me.
I picked up on it. I'm pro here. Rob,
food prices, energy prices, housing prices, college prices, they're all going down.
All right. Well, I'll let you guys fight over who wants to take this one first, because this was one of the ones that caught my eye. Biden will travel to Pittsburgh to unveil. Oh my goodness. I didn't even catch this. The first of two sweeping economic recovery proposals. So this is only part one, although I guess they're combining together. They will carry a multi-trillion-dollar price tag that dwarfs the 1.9 trillion COVID relief plan. And this is the part that blows me away. He signed into law earlier this month. It's not like, you know, they did it last year and they're re-upping it. I mean, and they're going to dwarf that?
Yeah, this is a Keynesian wet dream. And, you know, for everybody who thinks you can spend your way into a better economy, we're going to find out. I mean, there will be no excuses. Whatever happens after this, there'll be no excuses. And, you know, the American people voted for this administration, supposedly voted for this administration. And we're going to see, you know, what they do. They're going to open the spigots and blow it all out, you know. And if Keynes is right, then we're going to have our utopia. We're going to have our cake and eat it too. And we're never going to have to pay anything. We all get free stuff and we all dance around, you know, and sing Kumbaya. Or we could have, you know, the biggest debt collapse in the history of humankind, people starving to death and stuff like that. We're going to see, you know, which is the case.
All right, I'm gonna be a little unfair and make Chris simmer there a little bit longer. Rob, we gotta touch a little deeper on that. Is that an upcoming episode of Gold Silver Pros, the Kumbaya sing along?
Yeah, we're doing a video series. Yes.
Wow.
We do sing-alongs with Keynesian economists.
Chris, I won't hold you back any longer. Let it fly, brother.
Unfortunately, we have a little problem in this world. It's called scarcity. You can't print your way to prosperity.
Mm-hmm.
All they're going to do, like Rob said, is, I mean, people hear the word hyperinflation but the full
Chris,
term
look at
is
that bridge. There's going to be people falling off that thing any second now.
or jumping off.
Well, let's hope it doesn't come to that. Although, I got a question. As the resident, I think I'm the biggest conspiracy theorist of our crowd here tonight. But I was living in Denver. I think it was about 6 years till I left last year. I would imagine I've driven from Denver to California at least 5 times, probably over 10. I don't know. I just think it's a beautiful drive. So I'd like going out there.
Mhm.
Drove from Denver to New Jersey a couple of times. And then last year when I left, I went from Denver to Minnesota to New Jersey, then down to Texas. I never ran into any roads that were falling apart where it's like the bridge just stops halfway through. And, you know, because I'm a conspiracy theorist and I study subliminals and other things like the alpha brainwave state, or I forget which brainwave state the TV was designed to put you into. So you're more hypnotically susceptible to suggestions. So if you feel like you're a big loser because your paper towels aren't as absorbent as the guy who lives next door. And then when I look at this, you know, I mean, that's, as someone who has studied a lot about headlines and goes very far out of my way to make sure I get it. I mean, you know, anything I put out there, people are going to think what they think. I've gone out of my way to be careful because I understand the implications that can come across, and just, I don't know, in the middle of this, where's the concern about the money printing? Where's the people that are sleeping on the street because they can't afford food while this money goes into a black hole? Go ahead, Chris.
I'm 35, maybe 40 minutes outside San Francisco, and it has gone terrible there. The homeless rate has just skyrocketed, and yet they're talking about some economic recovery, which is total BS. And all these plans to improve infrastructure. The infrastructure shouldn't have to be improved. They were cheap when they did it the first, 10 times. If they just did it, quality one time, use good material that wouldn't erode so quickly, they wouldn't need this. I don't know how the government is not trying to actively lose as much money as it can. It seems possible.
Chris, that gets into something we talked about earlier. Maybe I'll see, Rob, you could share your thoughts on this. What if the whole thing is just the biggest mafia in disguise that is beyond what we could imagine? I don't think that these guys are confused Keynesians. I mean, I get it on any pyramid scheme. The guys on the bottom generally don't know jack. I mean, when I was an intern on Merrill Lynch's trading desk, I didn't feel like it was in the movie Boiler Room. Brought my mom to visit at the end of the summer. I never thought, and that never could have imagined the stuff that I've come to see since then. I mean, you have the CFTC, it's like a Three Stooges routine. I heard they're thinking about nominating Inspector Clouseau as the new acting chairman to speed up Ross and Benham's Silver investigation. But, I mean, Rob, what if it's all just designed to give us the impression that it's legitimate, but maybe it's like, I watched Goodfellas the other day, and it's like, something happens, and then normally people call the police. But if the guy who commits the crime is also paying off the police, could this be happening on a bigger scale where it's like, I don't know. There's some people that believe some wacky stuff out there, but it's getting harder for me to see it as even possible that, like, this is a robbery of the system. These are people directly looting, raping, and pillaging a country that they swore an oath to protect. I'm having a hard time seeing it any other way. especially just based on what I've seen the last week or two alone. Rob, is that in the realm of accurate?
I think it's gotten so obvious now. I think that's why you're seeing so much of our youth turn to the precious metals. You're seeing people come to the precious metals who may, you would not suspect. And that's where you're getting the silver squeeze movement. That silver squeeze movement is people starting to wake up and say, what the hell is going on? And a lot of that, it starts off with regulatory capture. You have the same people rotating between Wall Street and the government, putting in policies that benefit Wall Street. But now you're seeing it's getting silly because you're seeing Yellen go from, the Fed to the Treasury. And so what's the difference between the Fed and the Treasury? Is there true independence? And then you're seeing FASB 56, which allows the government to essentially take the real budget off the books and go black. And so whatever bullshit that they're putting out in public, you cannot rely on that because FASB 56 allows them to move money between different accounts and also misreport it. So whatever you see is a lie. So the constitutional requirement of the government to be honest with the people about the finances is gone through regulatory statutes, which is of course unconstitutional, but I don't see anybody challenging it, right? So the government has granted itself unconstitutional powers to do whatever the hell they want. Then you see Dr. Mark Skidmore with, I think it's now up to 145 trillion in undocumented adjustments. So the money spigot has just blown wide open. And you would have to have your head in the sand and be, either corrupted or, completely blind or so scared that you don't want to admit what's going on right in front of your eyes. And yeah, I agree with you. I think it's the robbery. It's the something Catherine Austin Fitts said a while back. I believe she was on another popular YouTube show. She said, you know what? They've already robbed the pensions because they've stuffed it full of liabilities that can't be paid back, and out the back door went all the value. So the pension systems are in serious trouble. Through every way and means you can think of, the system is being robbed, and it's being robbed right in front of you. And it's being done by statute. And the only way that you get a statute to rob the people is through Congress and through the government. So if you can't trust your government and you can't trust the regulators because they're all captured, what exactly do you do? And this is eroding faith in the system. And this is where you get the Wall Street silver and the silver squeeze movement. This is where you get people questioning the legitimacy of a presidential election. However you fall on that, I don't even care. I don't want to, turn this political. But I think for the first time since I've been alive, people are openly questioning the legitimacy of a duly elected U.S. president and the entire administration. I've never seen that in my lifetime, not to this extent. I don't know that any government edifice or body has any credibility right now, with the American public, and certainly not with China and Russia, who are basically, I think, laughing at the current state of the American government.
What would make you think that? Although, Rob, actually, those are some big questions you asked there. Although Silver Chris is up to the task tonight, I'm on my game because would you like to know what, again, not legal financial advice, but in a situation where if I'm sitting at my desk and I see the elected or unelected emperor, I don't even know why these guys talk about the Constitution. It's like, it's great, yeah, if we followed it, but you know what I would do if I woke up one day and I found myself in that situation?
What would you do?
Well, fortunately, I would just go to goldsilverpros.com, where rather than the propaganda that's found on CNBC and today's common Wall Street media, you can get the best market research and professional strategies for precious metals investing. And then maybe I would double down and get some SilverSeek, where I can find my friend Chris Marchese, who is explaining what central bankers seem oblivious to. Although, Chris, are politicians and bankers oblivious to this, or despite them saying they don't understand gold, they don't seem to give it up? What do you think?
So I have kind of a mixed view of that. So I think Powell, he's of average intelligence. I think
Chris, come on now.
Yellen and Bernanke, Have you read their papers on economics? They are dumb as a brick. But Greenspan was incredibly smart. You know, he was kind of a follower of Ayn Rand for a while. He wrote a bit extensively about the gold standard. He understood it. He understood its significance and its importance. He's just an evil person.
Did he understand that maybe there was just a payout on the other side, or what do you think happened there? Because yes, everything he said before he was in the Fed made sense. He even criticizes Bernanke now, and it makes sense, and talks about a gold standard. I'm like, well, that'd be great if he had actually done the exact 180-degree opposite of what he did while he was in there.
He wanted the fame, and I think he still got that because he blew up 3 of the biggest bubbles, 2 to 3, we'll argue. And he takes none of the accountability because it's all happening with Bernanke, Yellen, Powell, and whoever's next.
It's just transitory, Chris.
It's transitory. I love that word.
Yeah, the green shoots.
Everything is transitory. Nothing's permanent.
Everywhere. Rob, what would you say if I challenged you to a 1 ounce silver bet? And I actually know how this is all going to play out. I know I'm breaking a lot of scoops tonight. I'm not trying to be cocky, but you know, it's like that night Roger Clemens struck out 20. You know, just like some point he knew how to go to fastball. And Rob, what would you say to that?
I will raise your 1 ounce silver
Oh,
coin
he raises yes
to a 10 ounce silver bar.
10 ounce silver bar.
Right.
Wow, this could get wild. I'm gonna re-raise, but I'll keep it. Rob, I already picked you off on that ounce of platinum when you tried to bet against yourself, and I just had such unwavering faith and confidence in my great friend Rob that he's going to accomplish anything he puts his mind to. So I don't want to take all of your silver tonight. I'll just re-raise you to 20 and suggest you call there because I've rigged this one like JP Morgan in silver. Okay.
Done.
Here is the plan of how it's all going to be sorted out, possibly even later this summer. Budget balanced, debt load resolved, 2 10-ounce silver bars coming silver Chris's way. Chris Marchese, you're the independent judge. Did I win? Who's got that 20 ounces? Come on.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure you got the 20 ounces.
Yeah. I mean, that's really the only plan. Actually, there's one other possibility. I have not watched Jeff Curry's newest video yet where he explains how, you know, maybe out of that 3 trillion or so, they say the 5 trillion that appears to be going to get printed in March.
Chris, you will be wasting your life. How much you value your life? Because that is a waste.
What is a waste?
Watching this guy, Curry.
Jeff Curry? Oh, yeah. No. Chris, I would disagree. I'm a fan of the Jeffs. I watched this great movie recently. It's one of my new favorites called Under the Silver Lake. And I bought my Codebreaker book. And you guys know how I love conspiracy theories and all that. And things where they code September 11th in movies. And, you know, if you accept the premise, which is probably completely nutty and only a fool would believe, but that certain things, there's certain circles of people, and that maybe some of the ones that own the banks maybe have friends that own the movie studios. And I don't know, I just like sitting here with my dog watching movies and, you know, imagining things that aren't there. But I mean, in this movie Under the Silver Lake, I find a lot of interesting clues of things that pop up and that I find intriguing. So similar along as I've studied certain patterns. Let me put it in better perspective. It's like now whenever the Fed says something, you know, whatever they're saying is translating into we're printing more money, right?
Yeah.
Always.
So it's one of my hobbies of listening to Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan executives. I find that usually when people are talking about things that would be best left not talked about, at least if they're trying to not give away clues, I enjoy watching that. I've been learning quite a bit. And I actually feel I have a pretty good idea of what's happening right now, where we're seeing the price of silver get hornswoggled over the last month, despite the issues that we've all talked about in the silver market, the metal that is coming out of the Comex. And we didn't even talk about gold deliveries tonight. So I guess, unfortunately, David Smith coming back on the show. Here's my question back to you, and either one who can field this, and hopefully David can hear this as I ask. But, well, to be clear, I do not have the information, and I can't say that, hey, this is the last smashdown and it's all, to the moon after that. But I will say that as someone who's spent the last 12 years studying this situation, the thought in mind of this seems like this is Enron and Bernie Madoff on steroids. Never thought it would take 12 years, but what would it look like right before it's about to go? Because along those lines, I mean, hey, I don't know, maybe they have some tricks to prolong it, but there's got to be some point where the run on the bank starts and it's like, all right, I understand we were keeping this, but this thing's about to blow. I'm going to get out any shorts I can, get as much metal as I can, especially if you can cash settle with the Comex price. So I can't say for sure that this is the last time it'll get smashed down, but and David Smith, if you're there, we'll give you first crack at this one if you heard all of that. Is this what you would expect before there was a reset or a failure on the Comex or something of that nature? Is this what you would expect it to look like, what we've seen the last month?
I apologize for missing all but the last minute or so of this. I just got on. I got sidetracked on another project, but I kind of want to see if volume of sales at retail level continues and if the stressors on supply continue. And then we could think maybe the charts are being painted for a beaker type drop where it would drop sharply and turn right around, come back up. And then you would want to see it, go beyond the trading range of the last week or so to kind of confirm it. So I guess it's we just have to wait for it to be told by the market what it acts like it wants to do.
Rob, do you think we're approaching something that could be the end game?
Oh, I definitely think we are. Of course, I have to put it relatively speaking because I think the game has been afoot for a very long time. Research that I've done and other people have done as well. Don't want to take all the credit. The entire commodity market history in the US has been riddled with manipulation and gaming. And then when you throw in the dollar system, it started in 1913. I think this game's been going on for a long time. We're definitely in the final stages, or the 11th hour, if you will. Whether we're sitting at 11 hours and 10 minutes or 11 hours and 58 minutes, I don't know. But I go by milestones. And if you look at milestones, what we were talking about at the very beginning of the presentation is the crazy spending by the government. Things that I talked about with the government going dark on their finances, questioning the stability of the political system. There are cultural, political, and financial things you look at that give you pause and say, where are we going? And so, yes, I do. And I think that's going to hit the financial markets, and the ultimate value in the financial markets are real things. And I think it's money. So it's gold and silver. That's what I've always said. And I think that's your final resting place if you want value and if you want protection. And we're definitely getting close. I mean, I don't know what else. The only thing else that could happen is that we have, the major meltdown, the black swan, the banking system. That's the only thing that we really have left to check off the box and say, okay, this is finally the end.
Chris?
Okay, so if I thought this was so low for metals, and I thought they were going to go higher. Tomorrow, I would like gold to say gap down and open at 1650, go a little lower, then reverse on high volume and finish at like 1750. Same for silver. I'd like to see like a big key reversal. I don't know if that's going to happen. It could. There's enough tightness in the market. I could also see, gold and silver, testing 1550, 1600, and silver at, hopefully 22, because I think there's going to be some technical damage if it goes below that for several days on good volume. But again, a key reversal. I kind of think it's going to, I believe it's going to kind of trade sideways for a while. I hope the lows we're in today. I think there's going to be a dead cat bounce tomorrow, and we continue this sideways trading until there's some kind of catalyst that breaks us out. Even if it's headline CPI at 2%, which really means real inflation is at what? 8, 10, 12%.
I think they just changed the formula by the time it gets to 1.
Yeah, exactly.
Every time it gets to 1.8.
We just see the Fed say, okay, 10-year yields aren't going above 1.8% or 1%.
Yeah. Well, David Smith, perhaps we get carried away into this conspiracy theory, silver, alien talk. We can bring it back and stay to the theme of the episode and give you a crack at the Biden hyperinflation plan. Because I know you're calling in. You might not be able to see the pictures of the bridges that are just, well, not really falling apart. They look like in good shape. Hopefully no one's driving because it's only a section of them. I'll read you a little quote here. Because experts say an infrastructure update is long past due. The American Society of Civil Engineers, I wonder where they're funded by, most recent report card gave the nation's infrastructure an overall C-. Group estimates that U.S. faces an infrastructure investment gap. Wow, that's the greatest term I've heard since they came up with the inflation deficit of nearly 2.6 trillion over 10 years. Continued underinvestment will cost more than 3 million jobs and 10 trillion in GDP by 2039. Is that like a threat, like continued underinvestment? If we don't do it, that's how much it'll cost. So David, that's a big stacked paragraph there. But to start off simply, will you take the over or under on 2.6 trillion over the next 10 years if Biden, let's say he just took 2.5 terms?
These things always run way more than they plan. There's no way that they come in at, let alone under budget. I was just reading one of Jim Rickard's letters to which I subscribed this evening, and it's subscriber protected, but he talks about the tug of war going on between inflation and deflation, which makes it seem like, inflation is really under control. And all of us here, I think, know that that's not the case in terms of a lot of different subsectors, but since inflation has not won out at this point, deflation seems to be ameliorating what's going on, but it's not the case. Inflation is really raging in a lot of sectors, and he believes that next year that breakout is going to happen in favor of inflation. And one of the biggest factors he talks about is the demographics, not just in the United States, but in many other countries around the world, which means there's not going to be enough workers to meet the demand for whether it's infrastructure or anything else. And so they're going to demand and receive high wages, and that'll be one aspect of the inflationary spiral, let alone the commodities that are going to go up, everything from copper to iron ore to, iron to aluminum and that.
Yeah,
and they're all going
David,
to go higher.
those things aren't part of CPI though, so we don't need to talk about that.
Well, no, they aren't part of CPI, but we know the CPI is not realistic when it talks about inflation, that it's 2 or 3 times higher than what it really is. So, we can, anybody who just believes that CPI is realistic or is accurate is just fooling themselves.
Do you think
Can I
the Biden
interject?
administration believes that CPI is accurate?
If they do, they're whistling Dixie because, some of the people at the Fed are just touting the party line. But I mean, when you look at these different things and how they've gone up, and it's not just lumber for homes, it's just about everything, gasoline and staples. And I mean, it's just amazing. And I'm looking at the silver chart here tonight, a 2-year chart of silver. And like Chris said, it might test 22. Now that would be the 3rd test on this. And we sure don't want to see a 4th test, because it will go through if it goes back a 4th time, that almost certainly, in other words, break down. But this will be the 3rd test, and the last 2 were sharp reversal spikes. So they both went right to 22. Whether it stops at 22.60 or not, I don't know. But the only saving grace is that the volume on this last, really the last, I guess, month has been declining all the way. So it wouldn't take much to, except for that one spike day there, it wouldn't take much to turn it around if you had sustained buying coming in. I would watch for that. And I think it would be a good place to put an order in with a tight stop,
Hey,
Yeah,
guys, I got to get going in a couple minutes, but I wanted to say 2 things. Is that cool?
sure. Although actually,
So tell me if you
real
agree with
quick
this.
Before you do, just David, we'll come back to what you said about putting in a stop, because I think that's what normally would be safe, but is exactly what the banks exploit. And a quick breaking update, Chris, before you go, you can comment on this. Everybody is here for a real live spoof, live on the air. Some of the banks have just hammered the price of silver a quarter lower right through some of the stops. So, Chris, I know you've had the, in our misguided childhood, I ended up at Merrill. You ended up at the Morgan Stanley gang. What would Morgan Stanley know about hammering through stops? Or maybe not them specifically, but from someone who's been in the banking world and seen things like this, what could you share for folks?
You got to add on positions to get to the next stop. The next stop, if you can't do that, reverse position. That's about it.
Wash, rinse, repeat. And what were the 2 notes you wanted to share?
So, David was talking about how commodities are going to do well, but this isn't like the late 90s, early 2000. It's not driven by very robust international economic growth. It's going to be driven by inflation, government spending, things that aren't sustainable for long periods of time. So you got to be selective about which commodities you invest in. For example, like David mentioned, iron ore. Yeah, I think temporarily that could be a big one, but I wouldn't want to hold it through this cycle. I'd, stick with the precious metals, uranium, copper, nickel, because of the energy elements and the spending that will go into the electrification of everything, or so they think. So that's one. Then I wanted to ask you, we're talking about inflation, all 3 of you, about how much do you think your cost of living has gone up since, say, the start of 2020? This is a question for David, Rob, and you, Chris.
I'm still a little shell-shocked from the low inflation pandemic, so I'm in an inflation crisis in many of the places I've been in. So, Rob, what are you seeing?
Well, I will say this. I was shopping for a new vehicle recently, and oh my goodness, the prices of automobiles have gone through the roof. I mean, goodness gracious. To buy a vehicle that's 4 or 5, go from my 4 or 5 year old vehicle to a new one, you're talking about more than a doubling in price. It's like
those catalytic converters are getting expensive, buddy.
They are. It's that damn palladium price. Yeah, the price.
I don't think palladium's in CPI though, Rob. So that might.
Yeah, of course. If you look
I'm
at
sure
the
Rob's cost of food has gone down though, right?
Although on days where palladium comes down, then it's in the CPI that day.
Yeah.
That's right. Well, they have a doubling factor. Every time something comes down, they double or triple it, and then when it goes up, they cut it in half. That way, they can keep the numbers lower than.
Or they'll say the quality's improved so much, we can adjust it lower. Even though it's increased 50%, we think the quality's doubled. So it's actually a net 50% decrease.
Yeah,
I mean, that's how absurd.
They never compare apples to apples. They always got to play around with the numbers to represent, hey, your quality of life is actually going up, and it's not. And what they're doing is they're basically, as Chris pointed out, they're pointing to technology and saying technology is giving you a better lifestyle in some areas. And so the prices you see aren't really, they're doing an Obi-Wan Kenobi. These aren't the prices you're looking for. You're looking for these prices. And it's all one big, shell game. But it was funny because we were talking about my daughter going to college. She just graduated high school and thinking about going to college. And I flat out told her, I said, why? You already have a career. Why would you waste your money on college? There's about a 50% unemployment rate for new grads, at least in their field. Why waste your money on it? And it's going to cost you $100,000 to have a piece of paper, which is worth nothing when you get out.
100 grand, Rob?
100
grand? Did you mean 500 grand? Or unless we're going to get the student loan debt relief soon.
Yeah.
Although.
Can I go back and be a student?
Yeah. Educate yourself as long as it's fascism. Interesting. The yield had come in a little bit, although seems to be spiking slightly. What is it? Supply and demand. If there's more supply of debt, yield go. And they didn't teach that one in Wharton. But Chris, any other final thoughts before we wrap? Before you have to run, and we're going to wrap up shortly. But anything else you wanted to add there, sir?
Yeah, I just hope everyone listening to this, protects himself adequately for what's coming. It's a very dangerous thing. I mean, I would give anything to be wrong on my whole thesis. That would mean the world is okay. But I know I'm not wrong. So, everyone just protect yourselves as best you can. That's about it.
I think Chris is right about you can't just buy across the board on commodities. Some will have short lifespans in terms of the bullish factor, but a lot of the commodity rise is due to unrealistic attempts to go completely into the EV vehicles. In fact, California is talking about making it illegal to produce or sell ICE cars, internal combustion engine cars in a few years. I mean, that's just crazy. They're going to have another variation of Texas, where everybody's freezing because there's no wind and. But copper is such a long.
Come on, David. Bank of America has to eat too.
Right, but copper takes so long to build out, and it takes so long to fill the pipeline that it's going to be this. So this is going to be a long market in that regard. But I would stay away from copper exploration plays that are brownfield or that are a long time from getting into production because it takes so long and takes so much money. But the ideal copper play, in my view, and that's buttressed by Pierre Lassonde and Frank Holmes, among others, is to have a copper gold project and one that is permitted or very close to it. And you can just look at, I'll get two names here. I'm not recommending either, but I happen to hold Copper Mountain. But you look at Copper Mountain versus Western Copper, and Copper Mountain is much less volatile because it's a producer, even though Western Copper is a very good project and may get into production at some point. But when both of them have copper gold credits, but that really helps a lot when you have 25, 30% gold credits in your copper play. But some of these pie in the sky copper, exploration company plays are going to be the same way in 5 or 6 years, while the others that have merit, are going to be doing much better.
I'll just add one thing to what David said. People who want low risk leverage to gold, silver, copper, uranium. Now there's a whole array of royalty companies that cover everything now. And I think those are very conservative investments, but also give you a bit of leverage. So that's my 2 cents. Thank you, guys. I love chatting with you. We'll do it again soon.
All right, Chris, and I will see you down in Mexico if the next stimulus bill goes through.
Yes,
Thank
you
you
will.
for checking in. And David, before we wrap up, I mean, everything you said made sense to me, but would it change your opinion at all if the president believes that we have an opportunity? Wow, look at the sales copy on that one. Rob, do you like that? We have an opportunity to rebalance. It's kind of like we have a great opportunity to get smacked over the head with a shovel multiple times. They have the opportunity to rebalance parts of the tax code that are out of date. White House Press Secretary Circleback Psaki told reporters Monday. And she added that some could pay more in our country that aren't currently. Now, David, this is going to be a two-parter. A, do you think we're heading down the paying your fair share road? And B, when Circleback says, I can assure you that when the president lays out his infrastructure plan, he will also lay out a plan to pay for that, although the administration revealed few specifics. Do you know any of the specifics as someone piped into all of this stuff, how they're going to pay for that?
I'd say absolutely.
About the rebalance opportunity on your tax bill.
I'd say absolutely yes to the first part of your question and absolutely no to the second one. I mean, this is just, they're just blowing smoke about how they're going to pay for it. I guess they're going to print more, but they're going to tax more. That's for darn sure, and come up with all sorts of weird taxes. And that vehicle mileage tax is just the beginning, but they want to take taxes, I'm pretty sure, back to where they were several administrations earlier. And they never say anything about how to utilize the money effectively. You know, it's all, when they need more money, it's not how can we tighten our belts, it's how can we tighten the belts of the taxpayers.
Yeah, and David, did you drive anywhere today?
I sure did.
Well, I'm going to impose the Chris Marcus silver tax. You can send me a couple ounces for that. I don't know. Maybe he has about as much authority as I do. Who knows? Although, fortunately, throughout this process, the administration is looking forward to working with a broad coalition of members of Congress to gather their input and ideas. Now, Rob, do you think that's going to be the same kind of teamwork and open forum that the administration displayed with Vladimir Putin or the Chinese delegation? Or when you hear that Chuck Schumer is involved, do you think it's perhaps not going to be anywhere as cuddly as some of those other fun diplomatic gatherings that we've witnessed recently?
Yeah, I think there is a cadre of people in the government that are trying to direct all the bills and all the spending a certain direction, and telling us, you know, we should all get on board and just agree with it. And I keep waiting for the pushback, and I just don't see the pushback. So where's the pushback coming from in the halls of Congress against some of the spending and some of the initiatives? You would like to think that we have at least a two-party system and then maybe some independent ideas in there. I just don't see it right now.
I agree, Robert. There's not going to be any pushback.
We have to circle back on the pushback.
Yeah, circle back on the pushback, and you know, they'll say something for their base to show that they mumbled a little bit, you know, and then they'll roll over and keep their committee positions and this type of thing. Hard not to be cynical.
Circle back on the pushback. So I guess we've been talking about silver and conspiracy theories long enough for tonight. We're going to wrap this one up for now. Although, final question for our panelists. If we make a Super Bowl style box pool and you could buy maybe each week is an ounce of silver, So you can buy boxes of when they finally send Silver Chopper Ben up there to dish out the cash. If they're going to charge these taxes, they might have to load them up with the $1 trillion platinum coins here, David. So again, one final two-parter. A, which box would you like to purchase of when Ben is throwing out the $1 trillion platinum coins so that people can afford Joe Biden's tax bill? And B, what are you planning to do with your $1 trillion platinum coin? David Smith, you're up first.
Which box? What did you
Question.
mean by that one? Which box do you plan to purchase?
What's that?
You said which box do you plan to purchase? Do you mean which metal or what?
Yeah, you can pick a week. Like you could say, like, I think they're gonna it's gonna get so wild by July, they're gonna finally send Ben Bernanke up in a helicopter to throw $1,000 bills and $1 trillion platinum coins at people. Would you like to buy a box in our pool?
Yeah, I'd like to buy silver rounds, a nice box of silver rounds, or 10 ounces, a box of 10 ounces. I just don't see how you cannot buy if we get down close to $22, which is a lucky number for me. It'll be interesting to see what the premiums are. Will they still be at 28? I don't know.
I'm going to extrapolate that. I'm not sure if David quite got my full question, but I'm going to translate. Rob, you can confirm. I think what he's saying is with his $1 trillion platinum coin, he's going to buy silver. Would you agree with that? And is there anything that you could add on to that type of analysis before you wrap up here, sir?
I agree with you. I think you do. You do take your $1 trillion platinum coin, courtesy of the U.S. government, and you buy all the silver and gold that you can get. And in terms of your pool, about when Helicopter Ben comes out, or Helicopter Yellen, or whoever is at the control of the Titanic at that point, pick any box in 2021. I think the system is so fragile. You could pick any, and it's like buying a lottery ticket.
There's a lot to be said for doing it in thirds, if you ask me, which would be a third silver, a third uranium producers, the high quality, 2 or 3 of those, and then a third Bitcoin.
Well, I hear you. And Rob, before we wrap up here, I think clearly what we've learned from tonight's call is that you have my full permission and blessing to hassle my incredible partner and dear friend, Yara Vinay, who does an incredible effort at keeping this show running. Although I think we clearly need an updated timeline on the Silver Chopper Ben while silver is still at an affordable price. And lastly, before we wrap up tonight's festivities, I would like to give a special thank you to Kuya Silver, who is bringing us the action tonight, covering the Biden hyperinflation. You guys have seen David Stein, who runs Kuya Silver, on several of these round panels, and I found him to be pretty darn impressive. I'd rather hand him my money than Jerome Powell or Jamie Dimon, as he continues to build the next high margin silver mining company, which is not too far off from production. And perhaps before we wrap up, David or Rob, any comment on Kuya Silver or anything else tonight?
Go ahead, Robert.
Yeah, I would say Kuya Silver, definitely a good bet for silver. In fact, any silver exploration company like Kuya that you want to get into, those are good ideas right now. Certainly have spoken with the management at Kuya Silver, have a lot of faith and confidence in this company. I do think their project is a potentially really good one, given some of their exploration activities. So definitely one to consider for your mining portfolio.
Well, I appreciate that. And Rob, any final thoughts on the call or where we're at with silvers? We didn't even talk about gold deliveries tonight, but or just is perhaps the takeaway of the evening that maybe it's good to make jokes and have fun and get together with our friends and talk about the things we care about. And that fortunately, when we've planned for what we see coming, I don't know, I think we're going to be right about gold and silver, but whether it's tomorrow or a month from now, or whether the price goes to 20 or 40 in between, is perhaps that the real gift of precious metals, where it seems that it helps me sleep at night. Is any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it's your classic safe haven. And, if you're looking at the markets and you're seeing all the volatility and, the big, you see the funds like we've seen recently collapsing, billions of dollars in funds collapsing, Ponzi schemes, overvalued stocks, troubles in the bond market, and you're trying to find safe haven, I think gold and silver are definitely your place to do it. And I think you still have a window with which to do that. And also taking David's recommendation of getting into certain mining stocks as well to balance out your portfolio with some leveraged growth, I think is a really good idea. But I think now's the time to do it. Don't wait.
David.
Well, they always tell you to buy when others are selling, and it's certainly going on now. And the harder it is for you to buy, the more likely it is that you should buy. And that doesn't mean go all in, but it means buy in 2 or 3 tranches into the decline and pick the best of the best for yourself. Look at a half a dozen companies and buy 3 and decide X thousand shares and buy a third of that each way down, and manage your money, because I think you'll be rewarded over the period of the coming months.
Well, I sure think so. And if silver goes any lower, we're down at 23.95-ish. Although if we wake up and silver is significantly lower, Rob, I may be calling you early to help me set up the Come Pet Nibbles stand for $1 so I can round up a couple of bucks and pile on more call options like I've been doing the last couple of days. Which again is not legal financial advice, but at least the situation I'm in, I plan on keep hammering them on until it goes well. That's my belief. I'm not just saying this stuff. I'm not saying that's what others should do, but that's at least what I'm doing with my money for anyone who cares to hear that.
Well,
So
the
with
last
that,
couple of hours of trading on Thursday should be quite interesting, given that we have a 3-day weekend coming up trading wise, and see what happens on Thursday. Expect maybe more weakness tomorrow. That's what's tomorrow, Wednesday, and then a little bit of spillover into Thursday, and then see if they pop up near the close. That could tell us something kind of significant.
well, it will be exciting. Those holiday weekends, never know what the goons have planned. So fellas, thanks for being here tonight. Seems like people watching at home had a lot of fun. I feel darn grateful to be a part of this and get to talk with such expert investment professionals like yourselves, and just make it a good time for everyone, hopefully. So with that said, I hope everybody's having a great night out there. I do genuinely love you all. Thanks for being here. And it's a good chance we'll be back here tomorrow.
Talk to you.